I'm at Polle Hub UK, which is a new place for Polle bicycles in the UK. I've just been chatting with Phil over here, who runs Polle Factory Racing and the Polle Hub UK. We've also got some pretty amazing looking bikes that I can't wait to share with you. But first up, Phil,
Hi,
nice to meet you, mate.
Yeah, thanks for coming down.
No worries, thanks for the invite. I want to learn a little bit more about you, the setup you've got. And also we've got some absolutely stunning looking new bikes, the Sonni, and we've had the Voima. Tell me a little bit about you and how you got involved with Polle and the Hub UK.
Okay. Well, look, mountain biking has been a passion of mine now for 30 years. When e-bikes started to get good around 2017, I became very interested in them. As an engineer, I was naturally drawn towards a Polle. As soon as I saw them, I wanted one, so I purchased one. We started racing them, which is something which is very close to my heart. I've been racing motorcycles myself and running teams at various different levels up to World Superbike for 27 years now.
Wow.
So yeah, a long time, a very long time. Yeah, we set about racing with the Voima last year. Naturally, my paths crossed with the guys riding for the factory team, and as a result of that, I was introduced to Leo, and we got talking, found that there was a lot of synergy between us. He's a fantastic engineer with a great design mind, and we could see that there was the potential to put the two things together and for me to manage and run the team and help develop the bikes at the highest level of racing in the world. And then it just became really a natural progression to develop basically what Polle can offer to the consumer here in the UK. So we came across the idea to start up Polle Hub UK. Yeah.
Well, what an incredible history of like motor racing and then transferring that into your, I guess you've got a lot of expertise over the years for racing motorcycles, and then you manage the race team essentially, don't you? The downhill.
That's correct,
race
yes.
team.
So last year we raced in EEDR, which was the e-enduro racing with the Voima, and we started with a brand new bike for DH, which was the Sonni, which shares the name with our rider, Sonni, and we developed that over the course of the year, yes.
So we talked a little bit briefly, we touched on the Voima, which was a bike that I loved. I went and visited Leo, went to the factory and saw its CNC machine and got one and built it up and rode it a ton and loved that bike. And then it's progressed into, well, there's a new version of, I guess it's a completely new bike, we'd say, the Sonni. So, I mean, just looking at this today, I can see how stunning and amazing and what a feat of engineering it is. But what's the difference between Sonni and Voima? And then we've got a couple of different ones, like you can see we've got a dual crown version here and what looks like a lower travel version over there. So talk to me about it.
Voima is very much a trail orientated bike with 190 mil of travel, which for most people was quite difficult to take on board initially. But I think after people have ridden it, they realise that it's incredibly plush, incredibly comfortable to ride, and it can take big hits. So it was almost like the one bike that could do everything. When we were racing, we found that we had a different set of criteria that we wanted to adhere to. And as a result of it, we developed a DH bike last year and then realised that if we put a single crown on it, we could use it as a fantastic enduro bike. And then as a natural progression, we have created an e-bike off the back of that. Now, it's a very different package, even though like Voima is a 190 travel bike, and this is a 200 or a 190 or a 170 like you pointed out with the shorter travel enduro version. So it's a very versatile chassis, but the linkage ratio is very different and the way that the bike performs is very different. So I liken Voima to a knife, and I would say that Sonni is a scalpel.
Right.
It's incredibly sharp. It turns really, really quickly. And it allows you to do things. The whole design was no compromise. It wasn't designed around aesthetics. It was designed around performance. So you've got a product here which is basically function over form. Although I personally think it's a beautiful piece of kit, and it's got stunning lines to it. but it's basically designed to give you the very best performance. So you've got a chassis which is super stiff that will allow the bike to turn, carve, flick around like no other bike with this type of travel.
There's a few things in there. Having a platform that you can transform from something like this into an enduro bike with the same bike is pretty incredible. We're not talking about a flip chip that changes a half a degree. We're talking about an entire different bike.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aren't we,
That's right. I mean, you know, what you're looking at here is 200-200 with a 63-degree head angle. We've got a 449mm chainstay. And yeah, it's basically very downhill orientated, running a mullet. And then here, we're running a full 29 setup, 170 on the front, 160 on the rear. It's basically got a steeper head angle. This one comes in at 64.2 degrees. Still got the same chainstay length at 449. But this is... Obviously, with the difference in geometry which you get from changing the rear wheel, you steepen up the head angle so it's slightly more flickable, shall we say. Works very well as a trail bike as well. So really, you've got one chassis which you can flick between, am I going to the Alps and doing massive hits for a week away? Or am I going to go and do some trail riding? Or am I going to go head off to Bike Park Wales? You've got the options for absolutely everything there with one chassis. It's a great platform.
Yeah, I love that. And you've got the big 56.
With this design, with the 56 cups, it means that you can do some adjustment in reach, quite simplistically. There's a 6mm difference in cups, which can be put in there. So you can customise the bike really to fit you and modify it accordingly,
Yeah. And what's stunning, look, I got to say, with this red boxer and that red coil and the silver machined frame, it's something. As soon as I walked in, I had to stop you and say, these look amazing. Yeah. Excuse my language. They caught my eye. And I've got to say that Paul, who's on the camera at the moment, he owns a Voima. And when we've been riding together, and I've not been on a Voima, everyone is drawn to these bikes. They are so unique. And I think you touched on it earlier. You said they're almost like the Cybertruck of the e-bike world.
Absolutely, that's correct, yeah. Pollet is a 10-year-old brand now, and Leo is quite radical, I think, with his design approach. So there is no one else which is employing the type of technique which we are using to make these frames, with thought process about sustainability. With recyclable 7075 grade aluminium. It's a very unique looking machine. So wherever you go, you do get a lot of attention. Yeah,
and it feels to me like if you're a bike enthusiast, there's lots of little bits on here that you can really appreciate, from like the bearing and the axle is absolutely massive, to being able to totally customize it with reach adjust headsets, big dual crown forks, to transforming it into a more maybe nimble bike. But I've got to say, having taken this for a quick ride, this did not feel like a sluggish downhill bike. It felt like a very nippy and nimble bike that could be moved around a lot.
Leo has been rewriting the rule book, really. Originally, he was running a lot longer reaches than anybody else, and most other manufacturers are now following suit. He had slacker head angles. Most other manufacturers are now following suit. The design of Sonni allows this bike to turn like no 200mm travel bike that I have ever come across. It's I likened it to a 140 trail bike when I first rode it, and multiple other people have ridden it, and I don't know. What's your take on it? You've just taken it for a spin up the ride.
I thought it felt absolutely amazing. It felt so plush.
Oh, yeah.
But not plush like sofa, kind of pedaling through treacle, sharp, to your point.
Absolutely, like a scalpel, yeah.
But this is a bike that I'm a big fan of long travel e-bikes. I have been for years. I find they give me the comfort and peace of mind that you can hit as much as you want.
Yep.
But you can ride them on a cross-country ride. I'd have no problem doing 20 miles of cross-country on this. And there's not many bikes that you could say that about.
No, that's very true. And we've had multiple other people ride these bikes so far, and everybody is agreeing on exactly the same thing. I've got several customers that have purchased this with 200mm travel to do exactly that, trail riding.
Yeah, why not? Like, if it makes your ride experience better, why would you not have the travel?
Well, I mean, you can also use this in some really gnarly places. So we took this bike out testing with us with the factory race team. I was riding it on like the World Cup downhill tracks, and I am a mediocre rider, yet I was still able to get down without dying.
You rode this on World Cup downhill tracks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually did some timed runs with it as well, which was very, very interesting. We didn't do any setup with it. We literally just did it as a bit of fun. Let's just try it out. It was under 2 seconds off the times that we were doing with the DH bike.
Right. So an off-the-shelf, well, not. I know you've made some customizations maybe to it, but nothing that a customer couldn't get from you.
No, we will offer absolutely everything which we have learned from the downhill team and from the engineering which we've done to these bikes to our customers. Yeah, I mean, the idea of what I'm trying to present here with Pole Hub is you have the expertise which is gained from the World Cup team, and this can filter straight the way down to every one of the Pole customers. So you can have exactly the same level of performance as our World Cup riders.
Yeah. With your expertise of setup and
that's
component
right.
choice.
And support which we can give to each individual customer on the same level.
If I wanted to purchase a Pole bicycle, what is the customer journey or experience? Do I come in here and speak to you and have a look and then buy from you, or do I order it online?
So currently, how things are set up at the moment, you still purchase online direct from Finland. You can come down here, you can book an appointment. We can talk you through the different models, see which one is going to suit you best. You can have a test ride. We can sit you on the bikes, make sure sizing is correct. Basically help people through all of the minefield of problems which you could potentially fall foul of if you're buying a direct consumer brand. And then we can sit down on a computer, we can order the bike with you, run through everything, make sure it all goes through. We can even have the bike delivered here, which we seem to have a much faster pathway through customs to get bikes here than it seems to be delivering direct to customers. Which helps people no end. We can build bikes for people as well. If they want to have something which is not available, we can change the brakes for you. We can do whatever's necessary. So it opens up a world of possibilities, really.
And what about things like if things do go wrong? Because sometimes stuff happens. Do you deal with warranty here?
So what you've got now is a point of contact within the UK. So if, say, for instance, we have an issue which is warranty and the bike would have to go back to Finland for that, that can be sent to us and then we can deal with that warranty. So it shortcuts the customs process, going there, coming back again, the timescale involved.
Got it.
So again, this is another potential problem for direct-to-consumer brands, which we're looking to try and negate for our customers.
I think it's a worry for people, especially with e-bikes. There's definitely this worry about it's an e-bike. If what happens if it goes wrong, but having that peace of mind is really good, actually, I think.
Good. I'm glad you can see the ethos behind what we're trying to achieve here.
Just having people to talk to that are passionate about the brand and passionate about the bikes, and you've got a whole wealth of knowledge about every single little detail of this bike.
This is a premium brand and we're trying to give a premium service to go with that. So you can come down and you can talk to the guys that are building the World Cup bikes which are being raced. We've learned everything about these bikes racing at the highest level, so we can help everybody with that knowledge, really.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
And out of these bikes, which do you choose to ride? I know these are your bikes, aren't they? So.
Yeah, I absolutely love the 200 travel bike with a mullet. The steeper the terrain, the more I love this bike. The 190 front, 200 rear is probably my bike of choice for riding within the UK because it covers absolutely everything. You've got no problems with tight switchbacks, which is the only downside of running a triple crown fork, really. But you've still got the same travel. You can still soak things up. And obviously, as you know, I've modified the suspension somewhat on both of them, which has allowed things to work fantastically with both of those setups. So.
And with your mods that you've done, a customer of yours can get access to that kind of stuff?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't come as standard from Pole, but this is something which we're happy to give to any one of our customers.
Yeah. There's definitely some special sauce in here because I've got a boxer. This feels pretty good, I got to say.
Good.
Nice.
I'm glad you're impressed.
Can we take a look in here?
Of course you can.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Let's go in. I'll wheel this one in with me.
Okay.
You've got 3 trophies.
Well, I've just got a couple there, but there's just over 200 trophies, and where do you put them? Okay, if you put them in one place, it looks like you've created your own shrine of greatness, doesn't it? It's almost embarrassing. So I hide them all upstairs. But I was actually thinking, when you looked at them, I thought I should have brought down my ones from British Championship, some of my prized ones. Maybe I should put some of the.
What is that? That's motorcycle racing, is it?
It is, yeah. That was from winning the British Endurance Championship back in 2016. So,
Nice. You just so you're hoping to get some World Cup downhill trophies to go with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That's
so
right.
talking about the World Cup, what was it like running a team, World Cup downhill team? We're talking the elite of the elite racing. What was the experience like?
Well, I mean, it's my bread and butter. I've been doing it for such a long time. It felt absolutely normal to me. I wasn't really in awe of anything. It was a new challenge, that's for sure. But I quickly realised that suspension is the key part for the DH bike, and suspension is suspension. It works in the same way whether you're on a road bike, a motocross bike, a mountain bike, an e-bike. If you understand it and you know how to modify things accordingly, you can manipulate it to do exactly what you want it to do.
Do you find that bike, motorcycle suspension, all the learnings that you've made there are transferable to like mountain bike, pedal bike suspension?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it?
Yeah, it
so
is.
Working on a fork is the same, but just on a different...
It is, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously the travel is different. The machining technology inside them is slightly different, but the main principle is exactly the same. And the most important factor for me is balance. Mm-hmm. It's always been that. It's the balance between the two wheels.
Yeah.
So getting the weight bias correct between the two of them is always the most important factor. So I've worked through things in the same way as I would do with a motorcycle. So I always used to work with geometry, spring rate, and then damping is the final and the least important part of it. But obviously it is important, but in terms of my priorities, it's lower down the list.
And I've got to ask you, this is a high-end mountain bike fork. It's a 200mm boxer, and I think the RRP is 1999 RRP roughly, which is,
It's a substantial amount of money, isn't it?
Yeah. What would an equivalent high-end, top-of-the-range motorcycle racing fork cost, and what would be the biggest differences?
So, I mean, something like a top spec Öhlins or, K-Tech, you'd be talking, K-Tech is around about 11 or 12,000. I think it's about 16 for a top spec Öhlins. So
16,000.
16,000, yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Makes your e-bike sound cheap now, doesn't it?
16K just for the fork,
Just
and
for
then
the fork,
okay,
that's right.
okay.
And you'd also need a £12,000 shock.
Right.
So, there's a lot of money which is spent on the very high end through rod technology, cutting edge world superbike spec equipment. But that isn't necessarily what everybody needs and what everybody uses,
But what we've got here is essentially what the World Cup downhill rider, Sonni, is racing on.
That's correct.
Is that
yes.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is, yeah. It's what you've got in there is it was actually the first set of forks which I got in for Sonni to test, so we could see how he would get on with the new boxer. We've actually changed valving a little bit since then, but essentially the majority of it is pretty much exactly the same.
And is this Sonni's bike?
This is indeed Sonni's bike.
Wow. So this is raced World Cup downhills.
It did actually, yes. This one raced at Leger. He put in an incredible showing over the course of the year. It was so exciting to see him and the team progress, really.
And we have the Voima over here in this.
That's correct, yes. So that was Lee Johnson's Voima from last year. So this was raced at EWS. So he finished 9th in the overall standings, best finish of 5th. So, it was a good showing. And last year was a very difficult season in terms of the competition. It really got stepped up. There was a lot of manufacturer interest and also a lot of very, very high-end riders, which upped the game from the previous year. So
seems to be taken very seriously now, EDR racing.
Absolutely,
rather than
yes.
it kind of being a thing you could do as a bit of a side gig to maybe the enduro racing.
But I mean, this is really reflective of the market forces, isn't it? Because e-bikes are outselling conventional mountain bikes, certainly in the UK. My personal feeling is for enduro racing that it should be much more biased towards e-bikes because it does reflect the market.
For sure. Great to see them. And I didn't actually realise these were bikes that have competed at the highest level.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're still looking really fresh. This one almost looks brand new other than the stickers on the front.
Yeah. We try to look after them, but this one will be raced again.
This one's...
Yeah, we'll be back out on this one. We have some more testing soon, and then...
So this is going to be Fort William is the first round of the UK?
Yeah, well, we might well have a new chassis by the time we get to Fort William, but in terms of some pre-season racing, we've got, pre-World Cup season racing, we've got one race which we want to enter, so we'll get out on that one and do a little bit more testing. I think for a rider, it's easier to maybe disconnect your brain and push a little bit harder when you're actually in a race circumstance than it is when you're just testing. Yeah, I've got high expectations, really. I think this year is going to be a very good season.
You've just come back from pre-season testing, haven't you?
We have, yes. So we've been out with the team. We went to Ludenville where we did 3 days of testing, and then we went down to Montreal where we did another 6, and then the boys continued on to Malaga where we did some e-bike testing and filming, which you'll see on Pollay's and our platform over the course of the year. Yeah, we've got on fantastically. Onni is a little ninja on a bike, really. He's so incredibly talented and young and hungry. At 22 years old, it's just so exciting to work with a rider that eats, sleeps, breathes and thinks about downhill racing all of the time. It's the only focus that he's got in his life. So, yeah, we have another young rider as well who will be competing alongside him. We haven't actually made the announcement yet, but he is also a 22-year-old rider who is just as hungry. So for me, it's a very exciting proposition to have 2 riders which are equally focused, similar age, similar skill set and talent, so they'll be able to push each other on. I think last year it was quite difficult for Onni when we were developing a bike from nothing. He didn't have a yardstick to measure against. Everything was from his feedback. So you saw continuous progression throughout the course of the year. If anyone was following what happened, you know, we started by not qualifying at the first round. We qualified 60th at the second, and then we gradually worked our way up the order. I think we had 44th place in the World Champs, and we were on for a really good result, I think, at Leger, but unfortunately we didn't get to have our run. So, yeah. It's certainly going to be an exciting season. We're very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it as well. Got to say, as we've been chatting, I've been pulling these brakes and they feel slightly different.
Yeah. Well,
what have you done to those?
Yeah, well, you can imagine there's a lot of tricks which I've learned in the motorcycle industry, which I've sort of brought over, really. So we've been working closely with a company called JP Brakes for a number of years now. We use their pistons in all of our motorcycles. So we have made pistons up, which we have now fitted into our bikes here.
So you've made some custom pistons for this caliper?
Well, JP have made them for us. Yes, that's correct. So we have custom pistons which are inside these calipers. We make them for every single brake that there is there. We have various different sizes. But
and what do they do?
So basically, firstly, they're a titanium piston. The design of them is very different to standard. So the contact area between the piston and the pad is reduced, probably 60% reduced to standard. It has a carcellated top design, which means that air can get round the back of the piston to aid cooling. So the reduction in contact patch reduces the heat transfer between the pad into the piston. The pistons themselves are, as I said before, they are titanium. They're machined. Then they have a burnished finish, which leaves a super smooth top layer surface finish. Then they're DLC coated. So you end up with a piston which feels...
Sorry, DLC coated?
Diamond-like coating, yes. So it's a few microns thick, incredibly hard and super smooth. A lot of these coatings have been developed as a result of Formula One, really trying to reduce friction. But in a brake caliper, it reduces the stiction between the seal and the piston, so the piston moves incredibly easily.
Which is why I can feel this super light feather touch.
Absolutely,
there.
that's right.
Then the really defined bite point.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the result is that you have less fatigue from the rider because you don't need to pull the lever as hard. Much nicer feeling, which you get from it. Reduced transfer, so fade is pretty much non-existent, and pad wear is reduced enormously because the pistons themselves will not stick to the seal. They actually release when you release the brake, which releases the contact between the pad and the disc.
And you might be doing this for the new SRAM Maven, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we only got the Mavens yesterday, so the pistons will be coming out, being measured, and we'll be making them for the Maven as well. So we will be supplying them for basically every major brand that there is in the mountain bike world. But
Nice.
yeah.
I'll be checking those out for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, we thought what better place to test them at the highest level. So if they work at the World Cup, they will work for every single person. So I'll be very
Even
excited.
even just the feel of the brakes, disregarding the performance benefits that come with it as well, but the feel is lovely.
So, I mean, there's actually a little cheat which we can do with these as well with the pad contact. So if you like your brake to feel like a Shimano, we can close up the pad contact so you have a very instant, very positive bike feeling. I personally prefer a little bit more modulation, but you get the best of both worlds because you've still got the modulation and then you have an increase in power over the top of what you'd have from the normal SRAM.
As we're chatting, I can tell your tuning background is coming through because you've spoken a lot about suspension, little modifications, brakes, all of this stuff.
Well, I mean, racing is about solving problems, and as an engineer, I love to solve problems. So I look at things with a slightly different outlook to the majority of people and find different solutions. And as a result of it, it certainly worked for us over the last 27 years anyway. We've moved things forward very quickly. And certainly we managed to move things forward quite quickly last year for Polly and our downhill race team.
Love it.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously this is the shop front. This is the area where we can do some social media. We've got the bikes here. We've got a nice coffee machine, so if you come on down, you can be looked after. But out the back here is the spit and sawdust area. This is where the magic really happens. So,
Hello, mate.
How's it going, boys?
Yeah, good. You all right?
yeah, Sean's been working for us for a number of years, and you're actually my first rider, weren't you?
I was, yeah. We had some good times, didn't we?
We did indeed, yeah. So
Maybe even a podium.
we did. We got a podium at EWSE a couple of years ago, which was a fantastic achievement. So normally we've got Sean and James in here. Yeah, they basically look after the bikes. What you've got here is an engineering workshop. This is not your normal bike shop. We engineer solutions here, so you can see we've got a pretty large lathe there. We've got drills.
That's one of the biggest lathes I've seen in.
It's a monster.
That's massive.
What
are you using this for?
I can make custom make parts for it if we need to. Over the years, I've done so many different things with it. A lot of the time, I use it when I'm checking forks for straight and other bits and pieces. So, but for me, it's such a valuable thing to have here. And here's Beverly. Hi, Bev.
Hello, Beverly.
Hi.
Nice
So-
to meet you.
Bev runs everything in the office and looks after everything there, while we look after everything out here.
So what are these Voimers here? Are these again your bikes that you're working
Yes,
on?
yeah. So these bikes here, we've got a couple of different sizes. We've got a K1 and a K2 Voimer here. So again, it's nice to have a good spread of sizing so that if people come down, they can check out the different bikes, see which one fits them best. Again, this is a big problem with a direct-to-consumer brand, especially when you've got such radical sizing as Polly has sort of introduced, really. So you don't need to be asking yourself the question about whether you've got the right size. You can come here, you can try the bike out, and then you'll know 100% if you've got the right bike.
And I've got to say, with the geometry of the Polly bikes, on paper, you can look at it and think it's quite extreme, but it does not feel extreme to ride in anyway.
Absolutely.
If anything, they feel some of the most comfortable and confidence-inspiring bikes that you can actually ride. So,
Well, really, it's a testament to Leo's, design prowess, really. He's taken something which people say would not work, and not only made it work, he's made it work better. And I think to the point now where most of the other manufacturers are following suit, really. The general geometry has become longer and slacker over the course of the last few years.
Yeah.
Sort of really reinforcing the fact that Leo's design was going in the right direction, all of those years ago.
Yeah, it was certainly way more progressive in terms of the geometry than any other bike out there. And now it seems most of the other brands have caught up, but it's taken a long, long time. The manufacturing process is so unique. I don't know if anyone else will be able to match this without a significant amount of investments. I've seen the CNC machines over in the factory. But it also means that
And a significant amount of learning.
Yes,
Like you
yes.
wouldn't just be able to buy a CNC machine and go and make this. There is a lot more to it. You know, we've got some patented processes which are involved in the production of these bikes.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to have a go at it, they are going to have a big, steep learning
Best
curve.
get some good glue. and
Yeah, I
processes
think so. Yeah, that's
bond them.
exactly right. Yeah.
But I also love the fact that he can be quite agile to change things if they're not working correctly, because traditionally a carbon mold is a pretty significant investment, whereas he can basically edit the file and send it to his machine,
Yep.
and his machinists will create it all within a very short space of time.
But this was highlighted to me last year, and to be honest with you, this is one of the major points which I found so exciting when I started working with Polly. Over my years of working within the motorcycle industry, I would feed back information, and it would take 5 or 6 years before that would come to fruition in changes. Last year, we were feeding back information about the bike, and 2 weeks later, a modified frame was appearing. Now,
As in like different geo, like modifications made.
not so much geo, but we were changing key points within the chassis
Okay.
from what we'd learned from the the first iteration.
Within 2 weeks from Finland back over to the UK.
It's pretty impressive. No, not to the UK. That was into Europe.
Okay.
So probably to the UK might have been a bit more difficult to get it through customs so fast. But we were out in Europe for 6 weeks to start with. So we were giving information, and it was basically being acted upon and then turned into a second and then a third generation prototype. Obviously, this is not something which you can do in terms of production, but in terms of prototyping, this is a very unique design process which can allow very, very fast changes, which is so exciting from my point of view as an engineer. We moved forward so quickly last year. If we were working with carbon fibre, it probably would have taken us 5 years, I think, to get to the same point that we managed to do in 5 months. This is Nick.
Hello, Nick.
So,
How you doing, mate? You all right? This is not an e-bike
This
engine.
is not an e-bike, no. So this is an R1 engine. We've just refreshed the gearbox on.
Oh wow.
all last year, Lee Johnson was asking me to shoehorn that into the e-bike for him. He said that's what was needed for the power stages.
Yeah, it is a Yamaha motor, so you know maybe you could have got away with
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's the PWX 1000.
it. So what have we got going on over here? What's this stuff over here?
Well, this is a press.
Yeah.
It's a monster press which we can use for putting bearings in and out, bending material, forming, doing other bits and pieces. These are my heaters. Inverter welder here. So just turned on. I was making an exhaust earlier today. So we are an engineering shop. So you can see, look, this is the kind of work which I can produce here. This is a hand fabricated titanium prototype
And
which we
you've
made.
made this?
Yeah. We make all this here. So we laser cut. I don't laser cut them here, but I get parts laser cut and then I hand roll them and then I put them all together. I used to make a lot of these, but we found that it's actually become so labour intensive that it's become quite expensive. So we've moved to using mandrel form bends.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I've got bits like that kicking around everywhere.
It's clear
So-
to see, like, you like tinkering around, right? You like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
to get the
you can
most
imagine.
out of
Yeah. So
bikes, motorbikes, engines.
these are another thing which we work hard on as well. These are what's called bell mouth. This will release a load of horsepower from a lot of the super bikes. So these are 3D printed with our name on them, which is quite nice.
They're really nice. Have you ever fettled with an e-bike motor to try and get more power out of it? Not like changing the top speed, but is it possible? Or is it just all?
So basically, when we were running when we first started doing EWS, EWSE, the rules were one sheet of paper. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to be able to exploit this. By the end of the year, that had progressed into multiple pages, which were making things more difficult. And at the same time, Bosch released their race motor, didn't they? So at that point, you had all of the things which were legal, which were provided there. So there wasn't really a point to go any further with it.
Yeah.
But
I'm talking about the Bosch race motor. You have ridden other motors and you've had your team previously on different.
Yeah.
Do you like the Bosch motor your standout?
Well, really, it stands for me. It stands head and shoulders above the rest in terms of performance. it seems to be the most reliable as well. We've had Shimano, we've had various different bikes in here. I did a bit of time on a Giant as well, which had a Yamaha. Is it PWX3? I think it was, which was in that one. But none of them were really exciting enough to want to change. So I shouldn't say that because I've made my reputation tuning Yamahas. But the Yamaha motor is really, it's good. In fact, the Shimano motor is good. In fact, they're all good, but really, when you look at it, the Bosch motor stands head and shoulders above the rest.
And when you're competing at the highest level in terms of racing, it's these small pieces that you're looking for that help win world titles.
You've got it. That's right. Yeah. So, and I think Leo feels exactly the same. I don't think he would want to put a product into the e-bikes which we're selling, which is substandard.
Yeah.
He and as you know, we can change design. If a new motor came out tomorrow, we could have it fitted in a bike in a couple of 3 weeks, and we could be testing it and seeing what's happening with it. Yeah. So, rest assured, if there is new tech out there which is better, you will be seeing it on Pole bicycles.
I'll pop in the description how to get in touch with you and Pole UK and Pole Factory Racing, so people can find out. But yeah, thanks for sharing your unit, and thanks for sharing your team and the amazing bikes. And it's just eye-opening to come down and see not only the bikes but what you guys are doing down here. It's fantastic. So
thanks for coming down, Rob. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming down and checking out what we've got to offer.
No worries, mate. Cheers, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate.